Welcome to Kensington's highlights for the first half of 2025. We have some really exciting authors joining us today and some of my colleagues from Kensington to talk about the books that we're really excited about for the upcoming next several months for winter and spring. So without further ado, we will dive right in. I am Alex Nicolaisen, and I'm the Director of Digital Sales and Marketing for Kensington. I will be doing the introductions today, and then at the end, I will talk through some of the other titles that we don't have the authors here joining us today, but we'll kick things off with them because they're the ones who are going to make this so exciting. All right, so we have 5 authors with us today, all who are either debuting new series. We have one author who has his second book coming out in his mystery series. And then we have some overall debut authors. So again, really excited to talk about these really great books that are coming up. We will kick off with Rae Dunlap and the Resurrectionist. I tried to say your name and the title of the book at one time, not recommended. So we will jump in with this book, which is kind of historical suspense, horror, mystery. It's a real genre bender, and I think personally it's the perfect read for wintertime.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Kensington for having me here today. My name is Amanda Dunlap, also known as Rae or Rae, answer to either. And The Resurrectionist is my debut novel. I first learned about the Body Snatchers of Edinburgh while I was engaging in my favorite touristy pastime, which is taking a ghost tour. And the Greyfriars Cemetery, which is the location around which this book is based, is a fascinating historical site. And it's filled with visible relics from the age of snatching intended to prevent the theft of the bodies interred there. And I was sort of instantly drawn in by sort of the macabre genius of the body snatchers and the unique methodologies that they used. And as I was touring the grounds, I noticed this row of flats overlooking the cemetery from behind a stone wall. And I thought to myself of what a clever method of escape that could be for an industrious snatcher. And then by pure coincidence, a few weeks after my visit to Edinburgh, I listened to an episode of Aaron Mahnke's podcast Lore, which detailed the crime spree of Burke and Hare, who are 2 of Scotland's most notorious serial killers. And they avoided the dirty work of body snatching by instead murdering the tenants of their boarding house and selling them to the local anatomy school. So the sensational nature of those crimes just further captured my imagination. When I first started on this book, I was initially tempted to simply write a work of historical fiction centered around a body snatcher and his crew, but I kept circling back to the story of Burke and Hare because it was such a perfect microcosm of these colliding ideals that were happening in the New Enlightenment. It was the scientific progress that it brought completely at odds with the religious and ethical norms that were dominating the legal framework at the time. And there was just simply no better allegory to highlight the consequence of these unresolved tensions. And so The Resurrectionist exists at a strange little intersection between historical fiction and true crime, where real life figures make cameos throughout an imagined narrative. And I've started jokingly referring to this genre as historical fan fiction. And it was an absolute delight to immerse myself in this world as the book came to life. So just overall, fans of Jane Austen will enjoy the Regency era details, period accurate prose. Song of Achilles fans will be captured by the historical queer romance. And aficionados of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle might just see the hint of an origin story for their beloved detective. So I can't wait to introduce you to The Resurrectionist, and thank you so much for your time. That's all from me.
Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about your debut book. It's such a cool premise for a story. I think the cover really captured the whole vibe, and I can't wait to see what people think. We already have ARCs that have gone out. We have Goodreads going, so there's some early chatter happening, and really excited to get this one out there on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve and Body Snatchers. I think it's the perfect combination. Next up, we have Kemper Donovan and the second ghostwriter mystery. The first was The Busybody, which will be coming out in trade paperback on Christmas Eve. That was one of our Between the Chapters discussion titles earlier this year. It was a great book. I personally loved it. Really excited to continue the series. So I will turn it over to Kemper to talk about this new mystery.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and very excited to be able to tell you about my second book in the series. So I just held up the first book, which is The Busybody, which we were just talking about, and then this second book in the series is Loose Lips, and this is an ARC copy that I have here. So both of these mysteries are solvable puzzle mysteries, and they're very much in the spirit of classic mysteries a la Agatha Christie. And that's for a very good reason, which is that for the last 8 years, I have been hosting an Agatha Christie podcast. I am just completely and totally obsessed with Agatha Christie, and I have the hundreds of hours of podcast episodes to back up that statement. I know there are a lot of people out there who are also obsessed with Agatha Christie. So in a lot of ways, these books are an homage to Christie. They don't read like Christie. They're very contemporary. And like Christie, actually, there's a lot of lightness and humor in them, but it's my humor, not necessarily Christie's. But a lot of the puzzles and the tricks and the clues that I'm layering into the story, I was schooled by the best when I read through Christie's entire canon in publication order and actually engaged in a years-long ranking project. So if you too are a Christie fan, you can go to my author website, and I have a grid of how those titles are all ranked now. That just gives you a little bit of a sense of my Christie obsession, and that's very much on display in these books. So Loose Lips, it being the second book in the series, I'm of course doing something a little Christie-ish, which is that I've set the book on a boat. So there's lots of Death on the Nile vibes going on here, for example. And the one little spin that I did on a traditional detective sidekick framework for this series is that, like Watson in the Sherlock Holmes series, like Captain Hastings in the Poirot novels, my first person narrator is the sidekick. And she is in every one of these novels in the series. But in each book, she actually pairs up with a fresh detective in a fresh setting. So we're, sort of reinventing things in Loose Lips when my ghostwriter, my narrator character, who's a ghostwriter, she specializes in celebrity memoir. She is actually taking part in a literary cruise. It's called the Get Lit Cruise, and they're going for a week into the Northern Atlantic with 300 paying guests, all women. This is an all-women cruise because most people who read books are women, and they are super fans, and they are basically paying to hear lectures from different people who specialize in various genres. And my narrator, my ghostwriter narrator, is one of those people. The other Christie-ish thing that I've chosen to do within this series is that I take elements of the real world and I kind of weave them into my mystery fiction. The Busybody was actually based very much on the gender dynamics following the 2016 presidential election. Perhaps the busybody is newly relevant, even in today's day and age after the election we just had. That's all I will say about that. Have no fear. But Loose Lips is very much in homage to some of the literary experiences that readers can have IRL, like going to Ellen Hildebrand's island getaway weekends, for example, or there are cruises you can take down the Danube if you're a super fan of Gone Girl. is kind of in that same vein. And I have a lot of fun in that world. It's very hijinksy. And just as in The Busybody, there is a solvable murder mystery that happens aboard this cruise. And I certainly had a lot of fun writing it. I'm writing the third one in the series right now, which will come out 1 year later. And I hope that you all enjoy it.
Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about this series. Again, I really enjoyed The Busybody. This is another one where we have arcs. We've started our Goodreads promotions. We're getting great early reads. And of course, I mean, Kemper is a mystery expert. So it's really exciting that we are able to publish this series and, you know, share it with readers and librarians. Next up, we have a brand new series from New York Times bestselling author Maisey Yates. Rustler Mountain is the first in a Western contemporary series with a fun and lighthearted package. And I think this kind of escapist romantic read is exactly the kind of book people need right now. So without further ado, I will turn it over to her to talk about this exciting new series.
So hi, I'm Maisey, and if you know me, because this is not my debut by a long shot, it is probably because of my Western romance. That's if your patrons have ever asked for me in the library, that's probably what they've asked for. And so in a lot of ways, people are going to get what they expect, you know, out of a Maisey Yates book from the Rustler Mountain and the series as a whole. But there are also some different things. So really what readers expect from me is kind of a high angst, lots of banter, and spicy Western romance in spite of the packaging looking a little bit sweet. People have finally stopped sending me hate mail about that because they finally realized not for them. If you're looking for closed door, you're looking for sweet, you're not looking for me. So that's, you know, kind of what people can expect. But one of the different things about this book is I got to use kind of historical elements as a baseline for the story. So I grew up in a small town in Oregon. I still live there. One of the things I love about writing Westerns set in the Pacific Northwest is that it is just a different vibe. You're not going to get the same mood that you're going to get from small town books set, you know, in Texas or in Wyoming, where you have a lot of Western romances set. And so I love using Oregon because it's kind of artsy, it's a little bit quirky, it's just kind of a different place to have a Western, and it's also just where I'm from. And so the town I grew up in is a historic gold rush town, Jacksonville. There's under 3,000 people, but it's also the site of a big music festival. There's a lot of art. It's got a wonderful independent bookstore, Rebel Heart Books, which I got to mention in this book, which was really fun. And so I made up a town that doesn't exist that I imagined could be somewhere near me that shares some of the historical elements of the town I grew up in, which is really close to my heart. I used to do living history when I was in high school and homeschooled. I was obviously very cool. I'm still very cool. And so that's sort of the background of like what I got to bring to the table here to this book that felt kind of personal. Like it felt like, oh, I get to like share this stuff that I've been a geek about forever. And I haven't had the chance to put that in some of my other books. And I got to use that as the framework because the hero, Austin, in this book is trying to basically clear his ancestor's name. He's always been seen as the bad guy because of who his family is. And thank you. Somebody said I seem cool. That's really nice. Thank you. I'm really not. Ask me about Lord of the Rings sometime. That has nothing to do with my book. But Millie is the town librarian. So you've got this like, and she is descended from the sheriff who shot Austin Wilder's ancestor in the street for being an outlaw, but was it sort of a wrongful death, which is sort of what Austin is setting out to uncover. And it also has a little bit of a bookish twist because Austin is actually writing a novelization of the events of what happened. So he is a writer and Millie is a librarian. So they're opposites, but books are what unite them. So their love of books is sort of what initially brings them together, and their love of history. And so this was just a really fun book to write. And I hope that readers have fun reading it, and that if you guys read it, you have fun reading it.
Thank you so much. This one, I don't think we have Yes, we have our ARCs in on this one. And again, all of the books that we're talking about today, you'll be seeing a lot of on Goodreads. And of course, you can reach out to us for print or digital ARC copies for any of them. For the earliest books, the January titles, will even have finished copies soon. So, after we're done today, definitely reach out for any books that you're really interested in reading. We would love to get them in your hands. And next up, we have Emily Carpenter, Gothic Town. This is Emily's first book for Kensington. I just finished reading this one a couple of weeks ago. This one is going to be our Between the Chapters discussion title for April of 2025. Dark, Southern Gothic, horror vibes. Is it paranormal? Is it not? You have to read all the way to the end to find out. Maybe. I will pass it over to Emily now.
And I won't give away any more than that. But hi, everybody. I'm Emily. Thank you so much for having me. Welcome. So Gothic Town is a suspense thriller with just a thread of horror running through it. It is about Manhattan restaurateur Billy Hope, who has unfortunately lost her restaurant during the pandemic. So a few months later, she receives this sort of cryptic email soliciting new residents to a small town in Georgia called Juliana. They are offering this sort of economic incentive, which involves like generous business grants and massive Victorian mansions for sale for only $100. So Billy jumps at the chance, and she and her husband and their small daughter, Mare, pack up their lives and move down to Georgia. So at first, everything is great. Billy starts her restaurant, and things are like idyllic and a dream come true. But soon enough, she starts to notice there's something a little off with the town as well as its residents, and including a very special group called the Old Guard, which are the 3 founding families of the town. Fast forward a little bit, and Billy has realized that her family is in grave danger that she has put them in, and it's going to be up to her to rescue them. I got the idea for the book from a magazine article. I think it was New York Magazine back in 2017, talking about a Italian village down in like southern Italy, and they were offering this kind of economic incentive deal to bring people to their town and revive the economy. And they were giving away villas, like these crumbling medieval villas, for free. But the catch was you had to commit to like hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars in renovations. And also you had to commit to raise your family and stay in the village for decades. So immediately my, Gothic kind of horror sensibility brain started working. I was like, there's nothing more Gothic and terrifying than this. And I just ran with the idea, of course, pivoting the setting to kind of the milieu that I work in, which is more of a spooky, atmospheric Southern Gothic setting. So that's Gothic Town. I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you for giving us your background on Gothic Town. This one is going to be great to have come out in spring because it's the kind of book that you can enjoy in those like early, dark, rainy days of spring, but then it's also a perfect summer read if you're a fan of suspense and thrillers and horror. And then, of course, it'll be spooky season. So this one will definitely be one to watch for most of next year, as we have all of those tie-ins to work with. Now, last but not least of our authors joining us today, we have the creator of Hill House Vintage and queen of cottagecore, Paula Sutton. Cottagecore, again, I think what we all need right now, to talk about this new mystery, the Potting Shed Murder. I think this is going to be the perfect kind of escapist mystery reading that we need. And it's perfect summer reading, perfect spring reading. Really excited to be sharing this book. Take it away.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me along. So, The Potting Shed Murder. I'm Paula Sutton. The Potting Shed Murder is all about a protagonist called Daphne Brewster, who leaves London, South London, and moves to the English countryside, where everything is beautiful and bucolic and gorgeous and calm, and everybody is lovely, or so she thinks. And it's very much parallels my own life. And I moved from South London, so sort of inner city London, 15 years ago to Norfolk. And what struck me is you meet so many incredible characters. Everybody is lovely. Everyone's holding their finger up with a cup of tea and offering you cucumber sandwiches. And on the face of things, everything seems wonderful and welcoming and calm. But of course, life isn't as perfect as that. And there are always little mysteries and threads of conflicts and discussions that have undercurrents that go through all of the different situations that happen in a beautiful little country village. So it's got elements of a comedy of manners. So a comedy of manners like Jane Austen mixed with a bit of Agatha Christie. So there is a dark underbelly and dark undercurrent in this lovely little village. Somebody dies, somebody's accused, and it's Daphne Brewster who's our protagonist. It's her role to find out whether the person who's being accused is the right person. She's a bit nosy. She's come from London and she thinks that people need to have a bit of a savior, somebody to fight their corner. And so it's a mixture of Agatha Christie meets Midsummer Murders meets a little bit of Jane Austen. So lots of cucumber sandwiches, tea and cake, and a lot of snipey, backhanded comments and characters who were nice on the surface, but not so nice on the underbelly.
I am so excited about this book. I am a sucker for anything set in the UK and mysteries. It just, for me, checks all the boxes. I am really excited about sharing this book. And again, I think the timing, late spring headed into summer, it's going to be the book to read for summer next year. Thank you to all of the authors for joining us today. We're going to move ahead now to have some of our editorial and publicity publicists presenting some titles, and then I'll be talking about some titles at the end. So now I'm going to hand it over to Liz May, who is one of our editors here at Kensington, to talk about some of the books that she's working on that she is really excited about that are coming soon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for having me. The first book I'd like to talk about is After the Ocean by Lauren E. Rico. Lauren's previous book, Familia, had a slew of acclaims. It was an Indie Next pick. It was a Library Reads. It was an add-on for Book of the Month. Very well reviewed, lots of other author accolades. And her sophomore novel is a dual timeline mystery / familial story. It begins 30 years ago with this sort of idyllic couple on their honeymoon on a cruise ship off the coast of Puerto Rico. And in the middle of the night, the new husband disappears from the cruise ship and no one can find him. And the wife falls under scrutiny as was he met with foul play? Did she know something that she isn't telling the authorities? She's Puerto Rican and her husband was white. So there's a lot of sort of finger pointing that goes on. And then we flash forward to 30 years later, and the wife has reinvented herself. She's taken on a new identity. She has 2 grown children who have no idea of her backstory. And one day that family receives a message, which is that her first husband is still alive and in Puerto Rico. So together, she and her daughters travel back to Puerto Rico to look for him. And what follows is a beautiful story of soul searching, but also a story of the mystery, what happened that night so long ago. It's perfect for fans of The Night We Lost Him, and perfect for fans of Celeste Ning, people who really love that book club level read that also has dark thriller elements into it. So it's a journey of the soul as well as a exploration, an unraveling of the secrets that we tell ourselves and that we tell people around each other to keep the life that we wanted together. So this is currently a Goodreads trending title with, I think, over 14,000 want to reads on that platform. So it's going to be very exciting to see it launch in January.
And just to jump in, I loved Familia. It was one of my favorite books that I read this year. So she just has a way of writing, she's beautifully written stories, but also with a lot of suspense and twists, which I love.
Thank you. Okay, from here on out, we're going to talk about some romance authors, most of whom have a strong book talk connection. So it's perfect that we're talking about Kate Stewart first, because if you've ever sat around wondering, like, what is book talk? Why is book talk? What does that mean? It's like Kate Stewart is book talk. I feel like her career and her fan base is something that is like a perfect example or microcosm of the platform. So I'll just say anecdotally, like something like a month ago, one of her titles that were 3 or 4 years old, somebody posted like a 60-second video of themselves crying hysterically with like an icon of the book cover below it. And it got over 1 million views in like a week, and her book like shot up to the top of the chart. So that's the kind of, I don't know, online passion that is fostering this level of engagement. So Kate was, as said, a self-published online author mostly. We have been releasing her viral series, The Ravenhood, in trade paperback over the last year. All the books have hit the USA Today bestseller list. We've seen nice growth. This is the first in a spin-off series following characters from that same first book. And like this level of social media engagement for the star of this book, Dom, is very intense. You're going to see, like, if you follow Instagram, like this kind of dark romance, like people want Dom's story. So it has a place on a library shelf is what I'm saying. The level of passion for Kate's books cannot be underestimated. Like, I've never witnessed an audience so emotionally engaged, honestly. Okay, pivot, something way more lighthearted. My Funny Demon Valentine. I love this series. This is the first book in a new paranormal, romantic, sort of urban fantasy, cozy series from New York Times bestselling author Aurora Asher. In late January of last year, Aurora made her print debut at number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list with Sanctuary of the Shadow. This story follows a group of modern day demons who are tired of life in hell. So they come to Canada looking for a fresh start. And they meet like 5 very compelling women and take on a new life in Canada. So it's just these books have it all. Like, they're sexy, they're funny, they have good fantasy urban world building. They're just a joy. We're going to release all 6 books in the series in close proximity. These are special edition trade paperbacks, so they have interior art and stenciled edges, and when you line them all up on the shelves, the spines will create a new image. So it's geared towards a collection. There's like it's special edition artwork on the spine and the edges and the inside. This is also a Goodreads trending title, I think, with like around 14,000 want to reads. And Aurora's previous book has sold about 100,000 hardcovers to date in less than a year. So very exciting to have her on the list.
And then also just a note from the outset, when we were talking about the packaging for my Funny Demon Valentine, I was like, pink, pink, we need pink. And when I got my finished copy, I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you cannot, the level of pink cannot be underestimated on this cover. It's the online does not do it justice. In person, it is just, it's so bright. You just have to pick it up. You have to touch it.
Yeah, that's the Valentine's Day book. Okay, so going back to the dark side now, Luna Mason writes in the genre of mafia romance, which may be new to some people, but it's been building online for several years. That's where characters are involved, usually in the New York City mafia. Some of them are redeemable. Some of them are just the villains that you love to love or hate to love, depending on your level of, I don't know, therapy needed when you start reading these books. I don't know. But if you want to venture into the dark side, Luna Mason is here. This is a best-selling viral TikTok mafia romance book. She has something like 20,000 reviews on Amazon right now, like 30,000 followers on TikTok, hundreds of thousands of views. Mafia romance is new to print, but we have seen some bestsellers in it already. Sophie Lark's books have done extremely well, so have Sav R. Miller's from Source Books, both of those titles. And we've seen a lot of acquisitions being made to bring mafia romance into print by the big 5 houses. So I think in 2025 and 2026, this will be an emerging genre in the print market. And Luna Mason does it best. This has as you can see, there's boxing gloves on the cover. These series follow boxers who have had to get involved with the mob for self-preservation reasons, and the women who try to rescue them and whether they're able to or not.
And then also on all of these like big viral series where we're making them available for the first time in print, they are becoming available to libraries for the first time. They've all been Amazon exclusives, and now they'll be available cross-platform and in the library market.
Okay, Manic Pixie Dream Earl by Jenny Holiday. This is the second book in the Earl's Trip series. The first book, Earl's Trip, went on sale last year. It was a very well-acclaimed book. It had Julia Quinn, of course, the author of Bridgerton, showed it on her TV. I guess she's on Good Morning America periodically, where she chooses her favorite books. And she chose that book. She also featured it on social media, Facebook, Instagram. So it had a really like heralded entry into the world of Regency romance. This is a funny, like romantic comedy set in Regency England. So it's perfect for readers who want to explore historical romance, but want like a fresh take on it. Something that seems modern and has the sensibility of a contemporary read, even though it's cemented in 200 years ago. So there's a lot of funny plays on words, and the story really focuses on this brotherhood that the Earls have, like a found family. They all are best friends. They all help each other win the girl in the end. And this is the second book. the hero of this book, Effie, is lovingly set up in the first book. So if you read Earl's Trip, you're going to want to know Effie's story. He is the archetypal manic pixie dream Earl, not manic pixie dream girl. So very excited.
Thank you so much, Liz, for talking through some of your upcoming titles. They're all just truly amazing. I read Earl's Trip. I loved it. It was so fun. Just like Liz said, it has that modern sensibility, but in the Regency era, which again, when you know, I'm just a sucker for anything set in the UK. So now we're going to pass it over to Marty from our Erewhon imprint to talk about some of our upcoming sci-fi and fantasy titles.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all wonderful folks who have joined. You're stuck with me for the next couple of slides, so let's get to it. I'm primarily the publicist for Erewhon Books, Kensington sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and everything in between genre. So if you see any of these titles here, if you know of any other Erewhon titles, just drop me a line. I'll put my information below when I'm done. We are starting off with, as you can see here, North is the Night by Emily Rath. For those of you who don't know, Emily Rath is a best-selling author, most well known for her romance, and specifically her romance series, The Jacksonville Rays, which started with Pucking Around, and a bunch more in the series that Kensington's been publishing. North is the Night is her fantasy debut. She has always loved fantasy. She grew up on fantastical adventures and fell in love with that, and had been trying for many, many years to do a fantasy book. And now we have that here with North is the Night. This is debut epic fantasy. It is drawing inspiration from her heritage as a Finnish American. A lot of this is based off of the Finnish epic poem, the Kalevala. And in it, it is the story of these two young women, these best friends, Aina and Siri, as they live in a sort of pseudo Finland, Finland with a touch of magic here and there. And Aina is stolen at the start of the book by the goddess of death and taken down to the underworld for reasons you'll have to read to find out about. Aina is taken into the underworld, and Siri immediately makes a vow to go and find her friend. And so it's these stories of these two girls, one trying to survive long enough for her friend to find her, the other trying to learn enough to go and break into essentially hell to get her best friend back. She does that by finding shamans and other folks who understand the magic of this world. While down in the underworld, we learn that Aina is not the only young woman to have been taken, and taken specifically into the world of the dead, but that the goddess of death has a specific reason why she's gathered people there. And so Aina has to work together and get to know people and build connections and build relationships with those down in the underworld, some of which are quite surprising. Emily Rath is best known for her romance, and I do want to say, for those of you who know her from her romance, while there is romance in this book and eventually does end with some romantic crescendos, this is very much in the vein of an epic fantasy adventure, magic and folklore and character all blending together into what I know is a beautiful character-driven exploration of history and myth that is very, very dear to Emily, and that she has put into this. It is a hefty tome, by the way. So if you are one of those fantasy readers that prefers their books to be door stoppers, get this one in line because it's going to be perfect. So that's North is the Night by Emily Rath. And Alex is showing off here the deluxe edition with these beautiful sprayed edges and its reversible dust jacket. It is a thing of beauty. So that is North is the Night. Kicking off Erewhon's 2025, we are coming out with the debut novel by Linda Codega, and this novel is called Moth Eater. Now, Linda, very briefly, Lynn is an award-winning and award-nominated science fiction writer, journalist who worked for IO9 for some time, has done much coverage across the tabletop and board game industries such as D&D. And Lynn here takes this like incredibly incisive voice of theirs and delivers to us this novel that is perfect for anybody who loves Alex Harrow, Lee Mandello. It is the story of this young Black woman named Benny, and Benny is in this fictional town of Kyre, and Kyre is in the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. Benny is investigating the death of her best friend, who she suspects their death is due to the local mining company, who is currently working on Kyre Mountain and sucking the entire mountain dry of its natural resources. Now, Benny, as she is investigating the death of her friend, comes across, in her own words, crazy ass old white lady who is suddenly just this body appears on the mountainside, unconscious. Benny's got no clue who this is, but thinks I should do the right thing, throws her in the back of her pickup truck, takes her home. And this woman who appears out of nowhere, we learn her name is Moth Eater. Now, and Moth Eater is a local and last witch of the Appalachian Ridge here, and has been buried inside the mountain for over 150 years. So in this story, you have Benny's tale as she is in the modern day, catching Moth Eater up on what the world is 150 years later, and cutting between Moth Eater's story as we learn what happened to put her in the mountain in the first place. And now that she is awake once more, there's clearly a reason, since the mountain is in danger. And so Benny and Moth Eater have to work together and piece the history of what happened so it does not happen again, as we find again the climate is in crisis once more. Moth Eater received a really lovely starred review from Booklist recently, talking about its beautiful queer story, its beautiful magical story, its story of incredibly local and ecological disaster, as well as what it takes to come together to combat those disasters and heal what might be broken. So that's Moth Eater at the end of January. Water break. Water break over. Switching gears a little bit, we went from fantasy with some romance to queer modern fantasy, and now we go into romantasy with Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Eames. Andrea has been a children's author for quite some time, and this is her first adult novel. As you can see from the cover, it involves a certain central organ to all of us human beings and possibly other organics. But with A Harvest of Hearts, having spoken with Andrea at ALA earlier this year, where we had her, she said that a lot of this inspiration was sort of behind like a sort of reverse Beauty and the Beast for her. She also wanted to kind of combat the idea that you could have a female protagonist in these fantasy stories who is not a princess, not stunning, not magical. You can have a young woman who is hardworking and has, you know, her boots on the ground and does not give one crap about any sort of romance when there is work to be done. However, Foss Butcher, who is our protagonist here, doesn't really get a choice in the matter. In A Harvest of Hearts, a sort of medieval-esque fantasy world, magic happens when these sorcerers go around the kingdom and working with this monarchy and literally binding themselves to the hearts of certain individuals, these individuals usually being those young, beautiful women with future, you know, royal futures ahead of them, and these women are taken back to the capital. Now, Foss has never wanted to do that. She's never desired to be a part of that. It's actually terrifying and angering. However, she accidentally becomes bound to a sorcerer who did not intend for this to happen, did not choose Foss at all. And yet, unfortunately, he has no clue. Sylvester is his name. He has no clue how to undo it. So he goes, well, I guess you're stuck with me. You need to be with me, and I don't want to stay in your little town. So you're gonna come back to me at my house and we'll figure it out. So Foss is taken against her will. She's plopped down in a house that is mostly alive. She meets a cat that can talk, and all sorts of other magical whatnots inside this sorcerer's home, and together with the help of the cat, of the house, of this sorcerer who they really don't get along, but in, you know, possible classic romantasy motion, they begin to learn more about one another and begin to realize, oh, maybe he's not so bad. But you'll have to read and find out. That is A Harvest of Hearts at the end of February. It's going to be a lot of fun. Andrea is just over the moon. And I mean, I will say, when I was at the American Library Show, I learned all I have to tell a librarian is it has a talking cat in it. And most librarians immediately veered back to our table to get a copy. So if nothing else, I hope a talking cat inspires you to check this out. All right. And for my final title, this is When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vida Kelly. If you are a major fan of modern young adults and young adult geared works of fiction by T.J. Klune, Casey McQuiston, Vanessa's name might be familiar to you, because Vanessa is actually a very, very talented illustrator, first and foremost. In fact, the cover you see here was illustrated by Vanessa. I've already yelled at her that a human being cannot have that many different talents. She said it's not her fault. I agree. But I digress. So When the Tides Held the Moon, it is actually our first illustrated novel, because not only did Vanessa do the cover, she's also done close to 30 illustrations inside the book itself. And these illustrations will have some color to them, depicting moments from across the story of which is another romantasy. It is set in 1910s Coney Island. It involves a young Boricuan man, Benny, and looking for work. He's an immigrant in New York City trying to find work as a steel worker, and he finds that there is work to be found at Luna Park down on Coney Island. There, he is given the work of assembling a massive steel and glass-lined enclosure. He has no idea why. He's just happy to have found work, to have made friends, to be close to people, and people especially who understand what it's like to not fit the norm, to be on the outside. And Benny begins to find a life for himself here at Luna Park. However, that all changes, of course, as things must in a story such as this, when he finds out why he has built this enclosure. A kidnapped merman, who we can see on the cover, whose name is Rio. Rio is kidnapped from the shores of the East River and plopped into this enclosure to be shown off as a sideshow now there at Luna Park. And first of all, Benny's heart just breaks to know that this beautiful being was taken, and that he might be responsible for the reason why Rio can actually remain stuck. However, so Benny and Rio begin to talk to each other as Benny begins to try to figure out a way to, if not get Rio free, maybe to comfort him, and the two begin to fall in love. It is a beautiful male-male romance, fully illustrated, and kind of beautiful character work as Benny finds himself torn between these two worlds, one of which involves a family he's begun to identify with and found family here at the circus, and the other is Rio, whom he loves and is beginning to deeply love, but knowing if Rio is set free or is let loose, that might impact the future of his other family. So he's sort of caught between two worlds, this beautiful sort of tug of war of the heart. And Vanessa is just as talented a writer as she is an illustrator. And if that covers anything to go by, this is going to be a real big book to watch.
Thank you so much for walking us through some of the exciting upcoming Erewhon titles. There are a lot of accolades for these books and more to come. Some we can't even announce yet that will be forthcoming. So again, really exciting. Fantasy is something that so many people are looking for right now. And I think we've got the right mix of books to hit the audience. We don't have much time left. But you've heard from our authors. Most importantly, you've heard from editorial, you've heard from publicity, and now I'm gonna run through several more books that are coming in January through June. Anything you have questions on that we can't cover, today, I'm happy to email about. And again, as we have finished or ARC copies available, more than happy to send those out to you. Just reach out afterwards. So first we have Knife Skills for Beginners. This is another modern sensibility mystery, kind of at the intersection of Richard Osman and Joanne Fluke. So you have culinary, but you have a UK setting, you have kind of that more Richard Osman feel, and I think the kind of intersection is what a lot of people are looking for. Joanne Fluke fans will enjoy it, and fans of mysteries who don't realize they love cozies will pick this up too. Then we have The Other March Sisters. This is not so much a retelling of Little Women as much as what else happened with Little Women. This is kind of the extension of the story, the background of the story that we never got. There is so much more delved into with these characters, really exploring different aspects of their personality and their stories that were not part of the original book. So this is, you know, Little Women. It's a classic. It's the reason a lot of people love to read books. It is a perennial favorite. And this is for all of those Little Women fans, or if you haven't read Little Women, you've heard of it. And, you know, here's an entree into that world. Fern Michaels, #1 New York Times bestseller, hundreds of books, legendary. Her new novel of contemporary suspense, Fight or Flight. Every year she has a new suspense hardcover in the spring. This will be the one for 2025. Nobody kind of captures what readers are looking for the way Fern does. Nobody captures revenge and suspense like Fern. She is just a legend, and every time I get to work on one of her books, it is just truly a privilege. I'm sure there will be lots of requests for this one. So end of March, we have Fight or Flight, Fern Michaels. Holly James comes to Kensington with The Big Fix. This is contemporary action-packed romance. So this is at the intersection of contemporary romance, rom-com, and romantic suspense. So there's a little something for everybody. It is a page turner. It's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. And this is a really well-connected author who has written for other publishers and has had a lot of acclaim. And this is just going to build on that audience with this kind of genre-bending contemporary romantic suspense. India Hayford debuts with The Song of the Bluebottle Tree. At Kensington, I feel like we've become really known for these beautiful historical trade paperback book club reads. If you love Donna Everhart, if you loved The Flower Sisters, which came out this year for Michelle Collins Anderson, that was her debut, you will love this book. This is Southern historical book club fiction, beautifully written, page turning, just the kind of books that fans of historicals and book club readers are looking for right now. So, you know, shelve it next to Ella Marie Wiseman and Donna Everhart. This is going to be our big historical hit this spring. Thrill Ride, Amy Ratcliffe. This is a rom-com for all the Disney people out there. Obviously, this does not take place at actual Disney World, but it takes place at a large theme park. And there is an enemies to lover story here. It is a really fun contemporary rom-com. There are a lot of Disney fans out there. I might be one of them. It's just a lot of fun. It's magical, it's enemies to lovers, a little bit of spice, just a lot of fun and the perfect spring read. Finishing up the cover on this one, we're not quite there yet. The Determined by Rachel Ruckert, who debuted this year with If the Tide Turns, which I loved. It's a beautiful historical novel set post-Salem witch trials, kind of the piracy, witches, religious, conservatism of the time. Rachel returns to that time period now, the golden age of pirates. Only in this story, it's about female friendship, feminine rage, and she's really exploring a lot of themes that are really resonant, certainly, in the current times. So piracy, historical, feminist reads. Rachel is just an expert. She knows the time period and she writes an amazing book. Sabrina Jeffries, another legendary New York Times bestselling author. This is her trade paperback debut. First in a new series, Hazardous to a Duke's Heart. This will be a Regency set trilogy, perfect for fans of Bridgerton, of course, but also just perfect for fans of Sabrina Jeffries who are ready for what comes next from her books. I'm really excited to have her in trade paperback. I think that'll give us an opportunity to reach a whole new readership. She writes an amazing historical, well-researched. She's just wonderful to work with, and people are always looking forward to more from Sabrina. John Gilstrap debuts his new series, Burned Bridges. This is a spinoff from his New York Times bestselling Jonathan Graves series. One of the main characters from that series, one of the most memorable characters, fan favorite Irene Rivers, will now be the central character in this new thriller series, which will be hardcover original. John, of course, is a New York Times bestselling author. He is an expert in what he talks about. He knows about firearms. He knows about explosives. He's worked it. He's lived it. And that really comes across in his books. Debut, The Blackbirds of St. Giles. This is a beautiful new novel of historical fiction that will be hardcover original, originally published in the UK. We will be publishing it the end of this May. It explores another side of historical London that isn't as widely discussed. Takes readers from the horrors of Jamaican plantations to kind of the dark side of London during the 19th century. This is a beautifully written book of historical fiction, extremely well researched, and just an important read, perfect book club read, a perfect library read. Really excited to have this on our list and be able to share it with a broad US readership. And I believe this is last, certainly not least, Laurie Foster returns to Kensington with a brand new novel. This is the perfect summer read, The Guest Cottage. This is women's fiction, contemporary romance. Just that another escapist kind of small town read that is perfect for when your toes are in the sand and your nose is in a book. And it's a New York Times bestselling author, and you know you're going to get a great read from Laurie Foster. This will be first in a new series. Really excited to have Laurie Foster back writing for Kensington and to also be doing her as trade paperback original. I was wrong. Not last but not least. This is last but not least. Patricia Falvey, The Famine Orphans. Also the author of The Girls of Ennismore and The Titanic Sisters. Extremely well-researched books. Patricia Falvey really knows what she is writing about. She really gets deep into the research. She has a beautiful voice in her writing. And in the famine or orphans. She returns to that kind of Irish setting that she knows so well. And in this case, it is following young Irish women who are sent to Australia following the famine and kind of the struggles that so many people had to go through during that time period. Again, perfect for book clubs, perfect for fans of Ellen Marie Wiseman. Another great summer read. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much to the authors for taking the time. Thank you, Paula from another continent joining us. And thank you to everyone from Kensington. And most importantly, thank you to the librarians for everything you do, for putting books in readers' hands, for just everything you do to make sure that people can have access to the books that they love. Whatever we can do to help support you and get you what you need, please reach out and we will do whatever we can to make sure that we try to help keep the libraries vibrant. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you.